Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Worlds Apart, Words Together, where best friends share laughter, stories, and an unbreakable bond. And I am here today with my co host, Leah. Hello.
Hello.
How are we doing today?
We're doing well.
Yeah, we kind of chatted before going on, and it's honestly, we're vibing. We're
Yeah,
just,
we're just hanging in there.
yeah, we're just, I guess, rolling on the waves that is life.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I try to make it sound poetic, but it did not go
It
very
sounded
well.
depressing, I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, yeah, it wasn't meant to be depressing, but
So I guess today we are going to talk a little bit more in depth of a topic that kind of piggybacks off of one that we did a little bit while back, which we did of like the downside of comparing yourself to others, but we're gonna dig a little deeper and talk about one of the reasons why in a little bit more depth. And so today we're gonna be talking about how comparing yourself to others could lead to distorted self image.
yes. That's a very nice way to introduce the topic. And as Leah said, we kind of talked about this a while ago, and we figured it was one of the episodes that had more interest. So we decided to kind of take a deeper dive. And to start off with that topic, there's this one question that we're going to be answering, and that is kind of what is self image? Self image is kind of the mental picture that you have of yourself encompassing your beliefs, thoughts, and perceptions about your own worth, abilities, and appearance. So, self image could be not only the way that you look, but also the things that you're achieving in life or the things that you're able to do, hobbies that you have. It could literally be portrayed onto everything in your life.
Yeah, that's a good like summary of what self-image is for sure. And self-image has become quite difficult, I think, in today's world to even form for yourself and to be okay with who you are and even know who you are without
Yeah.
all these outside factors. I know we've talked quite a bit about some situations where going on in our lives where it's like that person has no idea who they are. Like they're just struggling to figure out who they are. And that's so important that you understand what forms your self image to have all of this like drastic effect on you. It's self image is formed by various factors, and these factors include personal experiences, feedback from others, cultural influences, just media influences from what you watch, from what you see, what you scroll, etc. So a bunch of different variations of social media. But all of these kind of work together to form or help you form what your self image is.
A great example of that, where I think this portrays the influence that social media can have on your self image, is Michael saw this video about a kind of controversial topic. And he asked me my opinion, and I stated my opinion, and we had a discussion about it where his opinion was very different than mine. And I kind of saw him in a different way after that. It was the topic of abortion for women. And later on, he called me and he was like, I'm so sorry. Like, I don't know what happened. Like, I saw that video and I believed this one thing, but thinking about it, like, that's not at all what I believe. So he saw one video about this dude talking about his opinions about abortion, and he kind of put that belief into himself, even though that's not what he truly believes. And that is just one video on social media. So imagine what so many different personalities and videos on social media can do or can hurt your self image because you're just getting kind of confused on who am I as a person? Like, what are my beliefs?
Yeah, and I think it's really important that self image is often talked about in various situations as just relating to yourself, like what you think about yourself in regards to how you look. But self image goes way beyond what you look like or what you perceive yourself to look like. It does go into your values, how you what you what you believe, what you hold yourself accountable to, and all those different things. So it's important to understand that self-image goes beyond what you just look like and what you how you perceive what you
Yeah.
physically look like. And it is important to understand like your personal experiences can help shape these values, and environmental factors can also shape what you look like, what your values are, etc. How you act in regards to getting feedback from others. Like you can be told 100 times that like you over talk, or like you can't read a room, and in some instances maybe it is something that you have to work on, but it could just be you're with the wrong group of people, and so now you don't talk, you're not outgoing, you've lost that part of you. So it could be something as simple as that, but you've heard that over and over and over again, so now you don't feel that you can talk in certain situations, or that your opinions don't matter, or whatever it might be. So it is important to understand that it's not just social media, but it's the people you surround yourself with, it's experiences that you go through. And the more experiences you go through earlier, it shapes you, you learn who you are. And I think it's also important to understand that you have to really sit and recognize who you are and what your values are, and just what you stand for, what you hold yourself to
What you're
before,
capable of.
yeah, before you can even start comprehending those feedback from various outlets. It's like you need them to an extent to be able to form opinions and form beliefs, but at the same time, there's so many of them nowadays that it can almost have the other effect.
Yeah.
And so it's just writing into understanding when is too much. And I think that kind of leads us into the comparison phenomenon that's currently happening. It's, the social comparison. Like I was stating earlier, social comparison is I don't look like that person, or I want to look like that person, or they have this belief, I should have this belief, without really understanding why they have that belief or why you should have that belief. And so there's differences, and there's like I guess two different branches of comparison. And there's like the upward comparison. So the upward comparison occurs when you compare yourself to someone who you perceive as better off or more successful than you in some way, which is what we often hear a lot of. I think in regards to like thinking of self-image, we normally hear about that kind of upward comparison. We're normally comparing ourselves to people we want to be.
Yeah, people that we perceive to be better than us in some way or another.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Like we want to do to try to become them. And the motivation for this type of comparison is it can inspire you to improve and strive for your goals. Especially if you see certain qualities or roadmaps that can help you with your achievements or help you attain goals. However, it is so easy to lead into the feeling of inadequacy or envy, low self esteem, because it makes you like fall short. So I think
Yeah.
that part of it is just so much more easy to fall into.
And then the other side of this, the opposite kind of, is the downward comparison, where with upward comparison, you compare yourself to someone who you perceive as better off or more successful than you. With downward comparison, you kind of compare yourself to someone you perceive as worse off or less successful than you. And this could also have some impact. This could, for example, boost self esteem, because this type of comparison can enhance your self esteem and make you feel better about your own situation, as it kind of reinforces a sense of superiority or accomplishment, because you compare yourself to someone who has a worse situation than you, and you're like, oh, I'm actually doing pretty good. However, it can also lead to complacent. How do you pronounce that?
Complacency.
Thank you. Complacency. I could not pronounce that word. Also, in better terms, lack of motivation, as you might feel kind of less inclined to improve if you believe you're already doing better than others. So you kind of don't see a need to go out there and grow, or to work harder, or push yourself just a little bit extra, because you already think that you're better than other people. So I think both have their benefits and their downsides to it, but also the other way, around. Like, I already said that, benefits and downsides. They both have their benefits and downsides.
Yeah, for sure. I just think just being aware of if you do or find yourself in a mindset where you're comparing, understand which one you're doing. Like you kind of know if you're going through something and you see someone or you see a person on social media, and we'll go back to like the classic like body image. And if you see
Yeah.
someone on social media who is female, and I know I struggle with this a lot, especially in the last 2 years, where it's like, damn, like they're fit, they have, abs, and like they're defined and like all this stuff. And so you kind of like you come across something that one, and if that's how you're thinking, like just be aware that that is considered more of an upward comparison, and then just understand the effect that that has on you. So is it motivating you? Is it like, yes, I saw this and now I'm going to go hit the gym, or is it more like, oh, I saw this but I'm still sitting on the couch watching Netflix because now I feel so unmotivated because I have no self-esteem. So just like be aware,
Yeah.
and that can help formulate how you see pretty much everything through in life through that lens. If you understand, like, it's human nature to compare, it's gonna happen. You can't not compare. But it's just being aware of what you're doing with that comparison and how is it affecting you.
I really like that point, because I think being just perceptive and being able to recognize those aspects in life can get you very far, and it can make you appreciate certain things a little bit more, or it can kind of put you in your place of being like, oh, I do need to step it up, or oh, I do need to tone it down a little bit. Yeah, so I really like that point.
And before we move on, there is one point I do want to make, and it comes about because there's so much, especially social media outlets, there's so much alteration that happens where
Yeah.
things aren't the way they are perceived. So be careful, especially when it's digitalized, that it's actually real. Like, is that body actually real, or was there a bunch of edits done, or is this
Yeah.
actually how that or how their everyday life is, or is it edited for a TikTok video? Like, be sure that you are comparing your situation, yourself, to something that is real and it's something that you truly want. Because a lot of times, what you're comparing yourself to in the digital age is not real.
And sometimes you don't even have to compare yourself to somebody else necessarily, because every person is different, every body is different, everyone has a different life story. And I mentioned it before on this podcast, and I'll mention it again. Instead of trying to compare yourself to others, try to compare yourself to where you were last year, and how much growth you've undergone kind of in your entire life. And if you're not happy with the situation you're in right now, what can be changed? And why is it that you're not happy? Is it because of distorted self image, or is it something within your environment? So then instead of trying to solve it by comparing yourself to others, try to look at yourself and your situation first, and then try to come up with a way to maybe change it.
Yeah, and I actually saw this like really good, quick, easy way to kind of look back. It's sometimes it's really hard to look back
Yeah.
on who you were because you're ever evolving. It's kind of hard to look back and be like, oh, 5 years ago, like what was I
Yeah.
thinking? Like what was I doing? Like I can't even remember last week, let alone yesterday. Like how am I supposed to remember 5 years ago? So there's like quick, easy way, and you can do this at year at a time, 6 months at a time, 1 month at a time. You can do it at whatever interval suits you and whatever interval you want to do it as. But
Yeah.
you just jot down like an outline of your current life. So you can say start as like a New Year's resolution thing because New Year's is coming up, and you can say, your age. You can do basically age, height, weight, current role and status at your job and what you feel about it, and your physical activity status and how you feel about it, like one line,
Yeah.
and just make bullet points for each factor. And then set a reminder in your phone for 3 months from now, 6 months from now, and you do the same thing. But now, when you do it, you have a bullet list to be like, this is who I was 6 months ago, and this is who I am now, and what has changed. And that's a good way to start that self reflection.
Yeah. And if that doesn't work for you, try something else.
Yeah. It
Do
just,
some
just
Google.
don't rely on memory because memory tends to let you down.
It does, yeah, for sure. What is also something fun, and I had to do that in my senior seminar class, um, is to write a letter to your future self. And
Oh, I hate doing that kind of stuff.
it was so weird at the moment doing it, but I kind of remember what I wrote down, and it's been almost 3 years, so I have like two and a half more years to go before I can read that again. But it's interesting to see if what like you dreamt of 5 years ago, if that is still your current dream or belief that you want to achieve. Like I wrote down that my sister would have babies by that time. Because
Is
I
that
was like,
happening, Mara? Is your sister? Are they
she's
talking
not
about
yet. No, but I did the math and I was like, by that time she's going to be 28, 29. Like, I better hope she has some children. So, it's interesting to do something like that and maybe even do it for a year. Write something down that you think you want to achieve or that you are going to achieve within a year. And then a year later, read it back, see where you were last year. Could be a fun
Yeah,
little
yeah.
evaluation kind
Yeah, I
of
mean, there's a
thing.
bunch of different kind of little activities that you can do like this to just force some reflection and be able to compare your current self to your old self without relying on some distorted memories that have been affected by experiences, current mindset, or whatever. I do have to say that your story reminded me of this amazing TikTok that I saw the other day. And it was one of those like wedding like speeches,
Yeah.
and the groom's sister did a speech, and she had found this letter of her brother, the groom, when he was 9 years old on how he was going to propose to his future fiance.
Yeah.
And it was hilarious. I doubt that's how he actually ended up proposing, but to hear that through like a legit 9 year old's words
Yeah.
was quite hilarious. He was going to be a billionaire and they were going to jet to Paris in his private jet. Yeah, I don't know if I could ever refine that, but it was just
Hmm.
so funny how you can like write something down like that, whether it was for school or just whatever.
Yeah.
And then to go back and look and to reread. Like I have some old journals that I go back and reread sometimes, and I just was like, what was going through my like 6 year old brain? But
Yeah.
that kind of stuff is just super cool to me.
I mean, and it also is just very interesting because I've did some journaling in the past. You know me, and I'm not very good at it. I never hold to it. But I've read some stuff that I was like, why was I even worrying about this? Like, why was this such a big deal to me at that time? So it's just interesting to see like the life problems that you had back in the day. Uh, but I guess that's
Yeah,
just life.
it is. It's just you go through different phases, and
Yeah.
different things come of certain importance at that time, and it cycles out and something else becomes important. So when, as you're talking about comparing yourself to others, especially in kind of the self-image little bubble, there are some like we've talked about some pros of comparing yourself to others, and there are some pros. There's also some cons. So some
Yeah.
consequences of this is diminished self-esteem and confidence and self-doubt, and a lot of that comes to feeling inadequate and that like you're not enough.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is con the short for consequence?
Yes.
I never knew that.
So of today, live here on the podcast, Mara now understands what con means.
Dude, I didn't know that. Okay, what
That's
is
why
pro
it's called
then?
pros and cons.
Yeah, but what is pro? Like, what is prosequence? That's not a word.
No, no. Pro is an actual word that means in favor of something.
Well, yeah, but con doesn't. Like, con is apparently the short for consequence.
Con has many like things.
Yeah, you also have a con artist.
Yeah, which is a non-artist, a fake
Yeah,
artist. Yeah.
yeah,
So con means against
yeah.
in Latin, if you want to go Latin.
Okay. And
So
pro
I
is
think
probably
it
also Latin.
Yeah, like I think there's various definitions, but
Okay.
normally it's like con meaning like against. It has
Yeah.
some sort of negative
Well, yeah,
connotation.
that makes sense. But when you said consequence, I was like, hold on, is that the short of consequence? Hmm. What would be the chance of that? Yeah, another consequence of having this kind of incomplete, maybe, self image is that you could also experience some self doubt when it comes to just who you are as a person. We love people who are confident about themselves and their abilities. And it's unfortunate to see that many people are not confident in what they can do and who they are as a person. And that can lead to doubting yourself and doubting if you're good enough for a job, if you're going to be able to do the work that is required, or if you're going to get married or have a relationship with someone. Like those are all parts of self doubt that come from that self image. So that could be definitely a very big consequence of that.
Yeah, for sure. And there's obviously more, but it's good to have some sort of skeptical self-image because that's what forces you to evaluate things.
Yeah.
However, having like chronic distorted or incomplete self-image does come with some rather cruel consequences in regards to how you feel about yourself, your career, your ability to form friends and relationships, and all that kind of stuff that Mart had just talked about. So it is important to realize that your self-image is ever evolving, and it's done through yourself. And again, as we mentioned above, it's through your new experiences, your new feedback from other people, and all of that kind of stuff. But overall, it's just important to recognize your unique strengths, and that's hard to do. I think, at least for me, it's easier to pick up on the negative, like
Yeah.
things that you're not strong at, things that you wish you could improve, compared to like being able to do or pick out your strengths. Like if I had to sit down for an interview and say, what are your strengths? Like I can do that. I have my standard ones that I can
I'm
dictate
very
to,
analytical.
yeah, I can dictate to a, you know, potential job interviewer that would speak well to my personality. But when you come down to it, it's just recognizing your strengths that are unique to you, which I think is very difficult for most people.
Yeah, I think so. We are very easily convinced by all the negatives and the things that went wrong. And they always say you need like 5 positive to outweigh 1 negative, which is a very big ratio. And I think that counts for a lot of people. So recognizing those strengths that you have will help you boost that self-image a little bit.
Yeah. And I think also it's important to realize, especially when you're recognizing your strengths, it's speaking from like the last 2 weeks of like reflection on myself. It's like you can't, your body or your personality or your whatever, it may not match exactly that idealistic version that you see, and that's okay because maybe you're not meant to be like that. And a lot of this is, to give you an example, is like the past 2 years I've struggled with understanding what is going on with my body, because it's like the way I look does not match my lifestyle. And it took a really big mental toll because I was just getting frustrated. And at the end of the day, I'm like, it's not what I'm doing. Like, there's something wrong. And then it took 3 doctors to even care that I'm telling them that there's something wrong with my body.
Yeah.
And so finally, someone was like, okay, we'll do like a half assessment. Anyway, I'm gonna affect a month later, and it's like I'm still struggling with accepting that, one, I'm always gonna struggle, and two, that it's outside of my control. And some things and some situations are outside of your control. And it's important to recognize that and find some way to take the positive out of what is currently happening. And wait a second, there's someone at my door. Sorry, that was like really weird. I think they're just like raking leaves. Anyway, but it's important to recognize that sometimes you have to just find the positives in something that you feel is negative, because you've been perceiving yourself as wanting to get to a certain goal or a certain place.
Yeah. And that is also a thing, like life throws stuff at you that you're not always prepared for. And if you're confident enough in your ability to handle it, and if you're believing in yourself and your capabilities, then you should be okay. Oftentimes, it doesn't always work out very well, but oftentimes it does. And life isn't going to go exactly as you think it will go, because there's always something that sprinkles some fairy dust into it, and it's like, what happened? But what I do think is that to reduce this phenomena of comparing yourself to others is to reduce the limiting of social media, a way where you're limiting the kind of feeding yourself the content that shapes your self-image. What I'm trying to say with that is the content that you should be watching shouldn't necessarily be always about self-image, beliefs, things that you should be doing, but it should be more things that already align with your beliefs, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to social media, like social media obviously has pros. As much as people want to down it, there are some positive things that come from social media.
Totally, totally.
And it's not so much social media itself, it's the time spent on social media. And again, the type of content that you're watching. And it's okay to watch, this like professional bodybuilder who has the ultimate bikini body, that is what you're striving to get.
I was gonna say Chris Bumstead, but he's not a female.
No, he's not. But if that is what motivates you to get off the couch and go to the gym, then great. Then that's fine to have in your feed.
Yeah.
But if having that in your feed causes low self esteem, it causes you to never leave the couch because why would I bother? I'm never going to have a body like that. Maybe that's not the type of stuff that you need to be scrolling through. So it's just important to realize and to understand how certain content affects you. And that comes down to the education of what is the types of comparison and what are the pros, the positives and negatives of each of those comparisons, and understanding how your feed and how your time spent on that feed is, like, what bucket of that is it filling?
Yeah.
Because watching a world renowned bikini bodybuilder can impact, you know, your best friend to get off the couch and go to the gym, but for you it lowers your self-esteem and now you just can't stop watching Netflix because you're like, what's the point? Just know that about yourself. And I think it does just come down to the education side of, and the education to recognize. And I think that's so big because we hear over and over and over, comparison is bad, or like social media is bad. I really think it's the education of being able to put that into perspective and be able to
Yeah.
curate your own thoughts and recognize and be able to recognize when certain thoughts are going through your head or certain comparisons are going through your head.
And something that can help with that is practicing gratitude, mindfulness, self compassion, kind of, where you kind of look at yourself and you just try to be one with yourself. Mindfulness at the beginning is kind of awkward, maybe. Um, but again, with that, try some stuff and try to find something that works for you. There's different ways that you can practice mindfulness. You can do it inside, outside, sitting down, laying down, standing up. Like, it doesn't matter. You can do it by listening to music. There's so many different ways, but that could definitely help by recognizing things in your life and about you that you could be grateful for, that you can love about your life, even if it's the smallest little things. But that could definitely help with that image.
100%. And I think the other thing is coming to also is self acceptance and understanding that sometimes things aren't your fault and sometimes things are outside your control. And again, I have mixed feelings about all this kind of wording because I can see both sides, but that's probably for a different episode that I can go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Because there's a difference between accepting your body how it is and understanding your body and just being lazy.
Yes.
Like, for me, weight has always been an issue, especially in the last 2 years. And it's just now that I've realized that's my body. There's stuff internally that's going wrong. And food and exercise is great and it's healthy, but I'm never going to have a six pack because hormonally my body is not sane. But if you are struggling with weight and you are eating junk food and you never move, then that's just lazy and you should not be self accepting. So I do think there is some tight regulation around those words, but overall, when it comes to self image, if you're living the lifestyle that you truly want and that is good for you, then you do need to have some self compassion and self acceptance and practice that mindfulness and gratitude, because at the end of the day, you need to be okay with who you are.
There we go. I have nothing more to add.
So I guess since Mart has no more ideas of what to talk about, I could go down. Like I said, I have very strong feelings, and
We could do it a bonus episode of just Leah talking about this.
yeah, for real, I could do that because like I can play both sides of the fence very well, and this is something I have thought about a lot. But in regards to comparison, just educate yourself on the whole issues of current society, of that comparison has become an issue. There's pros and cons to different types of comparison. And just educate yourself enough to know, and then put it and apply it to your own current setting. Because I think at the end of the day, knowing what is currently going through your head is going to help how you process. So if you have any comments, or if you want to give some suggestions or share your experiences, please do. Please reach out. But I guess we're going to wrap it up for today's episode. So thank you for joining us as we offer a glimpse into the world of true friendship, where even though worlds may seem apart, the connection remains strong.
Thank you. Bye.